Hello, everybody. Welcome to Designated Podcast. Right off the bat, we have some breaking news. Designated Podcast has submitted a formal offer of $3.39 and a half-eaten pack of Thin Mints for Alejandro Papu Gomez. We just wanted to enter the race with FC Cincinnati. We are hoping to have the deal completed and signed by the end of the week. We don't know how we're going to pay for his wages. The GoFundMe is in the description. Yeah. I'm Jules.
I'm Jacob.
I'm Joss.
And welcome back to Designated Podcast. It's been a while, but we're finally back. So today we have with us a very special guest. We have Hank, aka Hank Deplanka.
Hello.
Bro, could you have been any more awkward?
Come on.
No, dude. I just. What's up? I'm a Chelsea fan. I'm a Sporting KC denier, Rapid sympathizer. I live in constant pain.
You had a bet on Twitter about a month ago during the election. You want to tell us about that with the Atlanta United jersey?
Yeah, so I put out there that if Biden somehow came back in Georgia, I would buy a Atlanta United jersey with Biden 20 on the back. While I have not done that yet, I did go out and I purchased the Atlanta training kit, so I have one of those in stock. Maybe I can get the name on the back, but I didn't want to splurge on that too quick. I got hate on it. I got hate on it. A guy in my AP Lang class saw it on Twitter. He was like, "So are you waiting for the election to get overturned?" And I was like, what? But no, I'll get it eventually.
Oh man. Yeah, that was a fun time. I will leave a link to Hank's Twitter in the description below. So just before we get started, we did take a bit of a break. It was a good few months. But we're back now, and we have even worse takes than before for today's podcast. So without further ado, we're just going to jump right into our first topic today, which is Weston McKennie. He has won the U.S. Men's National Team Player of the Year. And I'm going to let Joss get us started off. Joss, what do you think this means, not just for the current players in the USMNT pool, but for the players coming up through the youth system right now for the USMNT?
Let me start off by saying I think that this is a completely deserved accolade for Weston McKennie. His rise in 2020 has been nothing short of astronomical. From going from not being picked for U17 World Cup, now granted that was 3 years ago, but he wasn't even picked for U17 World Cup, to now training under Andrea Pirlo, one of the best center mids of all time, training with Cristiano Ronaldo, forming a bit of a bromance in a way. I feel like that's the best way to put it. And now being awarded this by Carlos Bocanegra, who he actually met in 2006 when he went to a team meetup in Germany. So it's just an astronomical rise for Weston McKennie. And I think that we've really, in my opinion, he's grown to be way more than I expected of him. I never thought that he would be a consistent starter for Juventus, not only in the league, but in the Champions League. And now they want to buy him for 20 million plus. I never thought that he would go from relegation battles with Schalke to competing for the Serie A and consistent performances week in and week out with Juventus. So this is just, compete for the Serie A. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
He's grown significantly. And I think that we will see now more players like Weston who go from like these MLS academies to Europe to train, to get better, and then having an astronomical rise to this accolade, I think, because I feel what I'm trying to say is I think that he's following in a path. He's sort of carving a path that a lot of players are going to follow, in terms of who's going to win this accolade next.
I'm going to give you a little bit of pushback. I mean, we'll dive into this later. I don't think he necessarily deserved to win it, given his performance that he had at Schalke this year wasn't bad by any means. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I think once you look at Juventus, you can see that he has clearly risen. Cometh the hour, cometh the man, kind of stuff. But I disagree with you a little bit on completely deserving it. That being said, I also doubted him a little bit when the move came from Schalke to Juve. I didn't really expect to see him rise to this level this quickly. It was very good. Almost every single week now, it's like, is this man going to get a goal or assist? He should have had 3 today. That's a different conversation.
He should have had 3 last week.
Yeah, and this dude is looking unbelievable right now. And who would have thought at the end of 2020 we'd be saying that Weston McKennie is the linchpin for Andrea Pirlo?
I
That
wouldn't
is
have. 2020 was a bad year for a lot of people, but
definitely.
Weston McKennie, I think you may not. He is on the list of people that it was good for.
You see just the performances he puts in for Juventus, and you're thinking that this is a kid who's was born and raised in Europe, but no, he's a USMNT product. He came up through the Dallas Academy, right? I believe.
Right.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
just like you said, it's insane to think that we have a USMNT player that is crucial for probably one of the best teams in Europe right now, and
Yeah.
it's just insane to think something like that. Um, but going even further, just talking about like what this means for the youth players coming up, I think it just shows really right now hard work gets it done. Weston McKennie is, I think, one of the hardest working USMNT players on the roster, or just like in Europe right now. You see him and Tyler Adams just silently doing their thing, and it shows. They're getting recognition for it. Tyler Adams maybe not quite as much, but
No.
even still, like he scored that banger in the I believe it was the semifinal, I believe, for Leipzig.
It was a quarterfinal to get him into the semis.
The quarterfinal. Okay, yeah. And and you just see him putting in those performances, and you see players like Weston McKennie too, just putting in these performances, and I think it really shows the kids in the youth system right now that if you just keep working hard and doing what you're doing, that you will reap the benefits at some point further down the line, like Weston McKennie has.
And also, Weston McKennie is also he's extremely talented. I don't want to fall into the narrative that
Definitely, definitely.
it's just work hard and he's all pace and power, because he's not. He's very technically gifted and he's a very, very intelligent player. His hat trick that he got against Cuba, I think it was late 2019. I don't think it was quite 2020 yet.
It was not. I don't think so.
But his hat trick he had against Cuba, that was sort of the launch point of his rise, I would argue. And now he's gotten to this point, and I think that the best way to sort of compare how good he is, and like Jules was mentioning, like how quietly good he is you look at Schalke now.
They
They
are
haven't won a game.
Yeah,
disastrous.
they're dying.
They haven't won since January, and now
Yeah.
Weston played about half of their games last year, and so I mean, like you can argue that he had some sort of role in that. But now they're just dead in the water. They have been decimated, and McKinney's out here scoring at the Camp Nou. So I mean, it's sort of. I mean, it's not like exact causing. Like causation. It's not exact causation, but I just think
Yeah.
that it's sort of something we can compare.
Schalke's been a bit of a mess for a few years, to be fair, but I can see that definitely.
They have one win in their last 5 games. They dropped 1-0 today to Armenia Bielefeld, like
Balefield,
a
yeah,
promotion. Yeah, it's just I don't know. I think we're gonna have kind of that effect that that we saw in the women's team. I mean, you can Rapino, or like Lavelle watching Rapino watching Ham. It's kind of that, the idol factor where you have all these young kids across the country. I mean, you got kids' eyes lighting up watching McKennie score scissors at the Camp Nou. I mean, it's stuff you would never even dream of saying. But I really do think that, U.S. soccer has gotten to a point where we're producing players who can inspire and at a point breed kind of the next generation of talent.
I think another thing that we, heading into this year, we had this conversation where it's like, how long is Christian Pulisic going to be the USMNT's best player? And
It
maybe the
wasn't
question
long.
of like, when does Gio Reyna come in? And I'm not
Yeah.
going to say bar injuries, maybe Pulisic wins this award again. And that's not the point I'm trying to make here. The point is that now we have more players in this conversation now. It's no longer just this one star boy that plays for Chelsea. We've now got a guy at Barca. We've got two guys at Barca. Sorry, we've got a guy at Juve. And the fact that McKennie is out there leading the lines currently, leading this charge, says a lot about his character.
definitely. Um, well, we did talk a little bit about like, just the abundance of players that are competing for this award this year. So we're gonna move in to our next topic really quickly. We all have picked one player that we think is the USMNT Player of the Year, bar Weston McKennie, of course. So, Jacob, We're gonna start with you. Who is your USMNT Player of the Year?
Well, don't get me wrong, Jules. Should have been the USMNT's Player of the Year because once again, this man is getting it done at home in our home country. JMO Smooth 13 is undeniably
Yes,
once
Twitter
again
at.
is
Perfect.
undeniably the best player. This Stanford standout has been killing it for a number of years, but he only just furthered it this year, and I think under a lot of really tough conditions, Jordan Morris really shone through, and I think part of the reason why I really like this pick is I think this might be the last time, at least for a long time, that we're going to be able to have an MLS player in this conversation, and I thought Jordan Morris was deserving of it. I think if the Sounders had gotten it done in Columbus, I think that he really did maybe make that charge. But to be honest, he kind of disappeared a little bit in the playoff game, so I can understand why people might hold out a little bit. And when I say disappeared, I don't mean like he wasn't a factor at all. It's just I don't think he was quite the goal contributor that he maybe
Right.
has been in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's
I don't
hard
know.
to be fair. To be fair, it is hard to shine against an informed Emmanuel Reynoso and Lucas Zelarayan in the
Oh,
playoffs.
Zelarayan.
But yeah,
Absolutely,
What a
absolutely.
player.
Yeah.
I definitely
I mean,
agree
he
that.
would have put 7 past SKC. So I mean, there's no question about
Yeah,
that.
definitely. Let's
I
yeah.
know we are lucky we did not
Yeah.
beat Seattle.
It would have been.
Now,
It
Jacob,
would have been disgusting.
Jacob, can I ask you? So in 2019, Jordan Morris scored more goals than in 2020. Granted, he played 4 more games in 2019. He also had more assists. He had 1 less assist in 2019 than he did in 2020. Would you say like he should have won it in 2019 as well?
I think that's. I mean, I think Pulisic was on the top of his game because I'm not wrong in saying that Pulisic won 2019, am I?
Yeah, 2019. 2019 was Christian Pulisic.
Yeah. Okay. So I'd say probably not, because I think part of it is that really Pulisic was really this kind of spearhead figure that we really had not seen in a long time, and his performance in that move to Chelsea was kind of like, okay, we finally have a U.S. men's national team player on this scene, and I think that was kind of a huge deal. I mean, it was just kind of a huge breakthrough moment. But I think if we're going solely off performances this year, I think Jordan Morris is at least deserving, and he was in the conversation.
Jacob, that was a very good pick. Hank, I want to know who did you have for the USMNT Player of the Year because I believe we have the same player.
Yes, we do. So, I mean, really, all the world has their eye on this kid. Gio Reyna
Hold
has
up.
just
Sorry. Carlos Vela double just happened, boys.
I know.
Oh,
I was watching that and I was trying not to say anything. Yeah.
Yeah. So the whole world has their eye on this kid. Gio Reyna has been phenomenal for Dortmund this season. 4 goals, 6 assists, in 21 games through all competitions. For an American, who's merely a teen at this point, um, as Holland calls him, the American dream. I mean, he's so vital, to this Dortmund midfield, just kind of facilitating left and right. I mean, you got Sancho, you got Holland. He's just whipping in through balls. His link up play, his touch, his technical ability is, for what I'm looking at, he's farther ahead than Pulisic is or was when he was at Dortmund, and he's so much younger than him already. I think he had that one goal. I think it was last week where somebody chipped him through and he just took one touch. I mean, it was velvet right down to the floor, and he poked it past.
Yeah.
He scores disgusting things. I mean, for the U.S., we play him on the right, which I prefer him in the midfield. But I mean, he
Yeah, I
has
agree
that.
on that one.
Yeah, he had that one goal against Panama. I mean, granted, he's only played 2 games for the men's national team, senior team at least. I mean, the free kick goal against Panama. Uh, along the floor, it was a banger. And people will say, well, that's just Panama. This is the same country we're talking about that couldn't beat Trinidad and Tobago. I mean, it shouldn't have let us play 2 countries at the same time.
Yeah. You can field
But
22 players. That's messed up.
I mean, it's totally cheating. But I really do
God.
think that through the next series of World Cup qualifying, I do think that Reina will be more vital to this team than any other player, be it Jordan Morris, Pulisic, anybody. I think if you could really put Reina in any team in the world right now, and he be either starting or their first option off the bench. He's really just that good.
I think that's a very interesting point to bring up, and of course that's a discussion for another day. Is of course who is the U.S.'s most crucial player that they cannot be without right now. Um, and I'm not going to argue for that right now, but I'm just gonna go ahead and say my USMNT Player of the Year was also Giovanni Reyna. Uh, I think Weston McKennie, of course, definitely deserved to win, but I mean, I think anybody can make an argument for Giovanni Reyna, and I'd agree with it at this point. Like you said, he has established a crucial connection with what is probably the most exciting youth prospect in the world in Erling Braut Haaland, and that says a lot of just how good he is with his link up play. He is I just looking at Giovanni Reyna's passes, some of them are just beautiful and he can hit a volley so well. I mean, we saw that uh
Michael Bradley, eat your heart out.
exactly. Of course, I cannot talk about Giovanni Reyna without talking about uh his article that was written in the Players Tribune. I believe it was 2 weeks ago at this point, and it's a tough read for Giovanni Reyna. He has just a great story, of course, being the son of Claudio Reyna, one of just a USMNT legend at this point. Uh, but also just the things he's had to go through as well, and just his attitude when he plays. It says a lot when you read that article about what kind of a player he is, and I think it really does show. Again, like with Weston McKennie, that just putting all of this pressure in this current youth system that we have, putting the pressure on these young kids that they need to be soccer stars by the time they're 15, 16, which of course Gio Reyna was, but that's just because he's one of the most naturally talented players we've had in the system in a while. But the article talks about how he played so many different sports up until he finally picked soccer, and it just shows that if we don't put all this pressure on these kids in the system, that they'll naturally start to come through. And I think that's just one of the products of Giovanni Reyna. And of course, yes, you can talk about how he's the son of a former USMNT legend, but I think you just read the article. If you read the article from the Players Tribune, you'll understand where I'm coming from with this. His attitude when he's on the pitch is just unparalleled with I think any player, bar maybe Weston McKennie and Tyler Adams right now. And I think because of that, Giovanni Reyna is currently not just one of the most exciting prospects to watch for the USMNT, but I think just in the entirety of world soccer in general.
Now, I'm going to give you guys a little bit of pushback on this pick as well, and that's solely just based off the number of appearances
Classic.
that Reyna has made this year.
Yeah.
Reyna has been unbelievable. Nobody's going to deny that. It's just the fear or the that he just hasn't gotten to be on the pitch as much as other people, and that's not his fault. I mean, this has really been his breakout year. I mean, I think 2021 campaign is going to be unbelievable. At least I hope it's unbelievable for this kid.
Oh yeah.
But I would just say I think he just purely hasn't gotten enough minutes to maybe uh, be up there in the conversation just quite yet.
Yeah, and I think I agree on that, definitely. Um, and I 100% agree. I think next year is when we're actually going to see Giovanni Reyna start to hit that climb into being in the conversation for one of the for probably the most crucial USMNT player. And again, following Dortmund in world soccer, you see a lot of fans saying they don't think Giovanni Reyna should be starting, and I kind of agree. I agree to an extent. I think that Reyna's still very young. I think give him some time, uh, and he will definitely be a chosen starter, like 100% for Dortmund or for whatever team he ends up at. Um, but I think I agree right now that Reyna isn't quite at the level of being a starter for a team like Dortmund. But again, I think 2021 really tells us how far this kid is going to go in his career.
I'm gonna be honest with you, Jules. I would so much rather have Giovanni Reyna out there than fraud Jaden Sancho. Man, that dude is awful.
Yeah. I was gonna say, him or Jaden Sancho or to an extent Marco Reus. Now I understand that Dortmund fans, you guys love Marco Reus, obviously, and I get it because he was one of probably like your most talented players
Because he
ever.
was on FIFA.
But the thing is, like Marco Reus goes out there and starts games, and he doesn't have the impact Gio Reyna has anymore.
Oh
I
yeah,
think, especially this season,
definitely.
Gio Reyna is better, has more impact on a game than Marco Reus does, and I don't think that's a hot take.
I don't think so either.
And like Dortmund fans, like you say, like I see it on Twitter all the time during their game day. They're like, oh, they slander Gio Reyna, they rake his name through the mud, and then Marco Reus, he can do no wrong, even when he's arguably performing worse.
Dropping 4 out of 10s left and right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Dude, you want to hear a fun stat
dropping
about
threes like
this?
he's Curry, bro.
Giovanni Reyna has more goal contributions, or has the same number of goal contributions in the 2020-21 season already this season than Marco Reus and Jaden Sancho combined. But
Oh my God.
No, yeah, I mean, Gio Reyna right now accounts for 30% of Dortmund's goals in all competitions.
And the 70% is early
disgusting.
But he is an 87 rated on FIFA, so you think he sucks. I mean, that's
Yeah, EA, can you bump him up?
I'm sorry,
please?
Jules. I forgot that you're gonna have to bleep that out. That's my bad.
I was gonna say something, but you were going off.
Before we move on to my pick, I will just say that currently, Weston McKennie, Jordan Morris, and Gio Reyna all developed in MLS club.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
These are the players that we are talking about and winning United States Men's National Team Player of the Year. So being an MLS player does not automatically just make you not worthy of this award. I think it was Alexi Lawless that said earlier, and I get it's Alexi. Yeah. So he made a very good point that said Jordan Morris does not have to leave to Europe to still have an impact. And I would agree on that.
Yes.
I think we saw it yesterday or 2 days ago on Twitter when, we'll touch on this later, Buzio to Barcelona rumors are starting to fly around, and there were people in the comments going, Sporting Kansas City, MLS, why? I mean, there are some really good talents being pumped out of, the NYCFC Academy, which is where, Reyna is from. And NYCFC are trash right now. I mean, they are awful. I mean, they're a playoff team. Organization. They're a good playoff team. They're a terrible organization, but I mean, they are. I just think that, I mean, you don't have to be necessarily a good team to have a good academy. But definitely. I mean, it just goes to say that, these academies in America are really developing at a scary fast pace. And if they're pumping out players like Reyna, like Buzio, like Adams, I think came up through
the Red Bulls.
Yeah, Red Bulls. I mean, it's just. America's going to be a force for the next 10 years.
Yeah, and the thing is, before we move on, there's no sign of this slowing down.
So, definitely not.
We can cover that more when.
I was gonna say we'll touch on that in a minute. But Joss, I want you to talk about your pick because your pick is one that I think was very interesting to me.
So for my United States Men's National Team Player of the Year, I personally chose Serginho Dest from Barcelona.
I am a big fan of Serginho Dest. I think he can play almost anywhere. Like, I tweeted this out when we played Panama. I have never done cocaine, but I think that the feeling I get from watching Serginho Dest is the same feeling that cocaine would give me. He is immensely talented. He's immensely fun to watch. And he gets signed to Barcelona, right? So Barcelona, who are going through this huge rebuild, this like Messi, we don't know where he's going to go. They have like 40 players over the age of 30. They're in this huge decline, but Serginho Dest has still shown as one of their best players, and he's still been shown as a consistent threat in all their games. And he even scored in the Champions League. He scored against that Hungarian team who I don't know how to pronounce, Ferencváros or something like that. Something like that. Yeah.
Hungarian Wi-Fi password.
But most immensely, I think Serginho Dest is a men's national team player of the year, not just because of what he's done on the pitch, but what he's done off of it. Now, I know he declared for the U.S. in 2019, but I'm going to count it as 2020 because this is my podcast. This is our podcast, and it's our rules, so who cares?
This is your podcast.
Yeah, this is our podcast. This is our rules, Him declaring for the United States over the Netherlands shows a sort of commitment and a sort of grit, one might say tenacity, that I don't think we've
Dude,
seen in a long
you
time.
are currently using attributes to describe white quarterbacks right now.
I know.
Out of here.
I know. That's why I did it. No. But it shows a commitment. At the very least, it shows a commitment to this project that we wouldn't have seen 5 years ago. There's no way Dest chooses us over the Netherlands 5 years ago. There's no way. So I think to an extent, like obviously, and Jacob's gonna give me some pushback because he hasn't performed the best on the field over Morris or Zardes or McKinney. But I think that
which
take
is the reason for this award, by the way. So thank you for at least acknowledging that before I had to dig into you.
What I say, our podcast, our rules. And my rule is the fact that because David Beckham was not an MLS All-Star, he was never one of the best players on the pitch in MLS. He hardly played, but his impact on the field, off the field, was so great. And I think that Dest is like that, this sort of David Beckham sort of movement for the United States men's national team. Because now we're seeing Yunus Musa, now we're seeing Ayo Akinola, we're seeing these players who are dual nationals deciding that hey, this project is good and something that I want to be a part of. And I think that warrants at least a shout for being a United States men's national team player of the year, alongside the fact that he's also just immensely talented on the pitch.
Okay, Serginho Dest currently is just an Antoine Griezmann went right. Because this dude was playing games, bro, between Bayern and Barca, man. That could have ended so poorly, but the fact that it hasn't yet is a good sign. And while as much as I want to dig into you, I think you make an extremely good point. And the fact that he did choose us and that people are buying in is going to make such a big difference in the future. So as much as I hate to say this, dude, Josh, a great point.
It never happens, bro.
Has the sun just collided with the moon?
Yeah.
I've known Jacob for like 13 years, and he's never said I had a good point in anything.
We are in the worst timeline, bro. I swear.
2020 continues to give the most crazy shit. Oh my god.
Disaster class.
And like Jacob said, like you can have your problems with Greg Berhalter. I certainly have mine with how we play sometimes, but you cannot argue that he has not done a great job in recruiting these dual nationals. He's actually gone out there. He's given them calls. He's been like, "Hey, we got this jersey number for you. We got a spot for you. Come show us what you can do."
Well, and like let's talk about like what the USMNT's Twitter is doing, because we're talking about players like about Musa, right? When England is staying dead silent. And so if you're a player, who do you feel wanted by? Who do you want to be a part of? It's not a question. Everybody from the bottom to the top of this organization is doing a great thing right now. And something that Jurgen Klinsmann never gets enough credit for is Jurgen's Germans, right? And this is just 2.0 of that, except for just more on a global scale. So yeah, unbelievable job by Berhalter.
Now he just needs to call up Balogun from Arsenal.
Get us Balogun, and I'm okay with it, man.
He's been good for.
He's been good. Oh, yeah. He scored in the Europa
18s.
League.
Yeah.
He scored in the Europa League too for Arsenal. Yeah.
I believe so. Yes. Berhalter needs to give him a ring, like right now.
Agreed. I'm sure. No, I'm sure. Like this, I haven't been certain on a lot of things under Greg Berhalter's reign, but one of the things I'm sure of is that he knows that Balogun is on the radar.
Definitely. And
because like we hardly knew about Musa before 48 hours later he was getting a call up to the national team.
Seeing him on that roster was one of the most insane moments, I think, of like being a USMNT fan.
Agreed.
This is a kid that's getting touted as being one of like England's top prospects right now.
Yeah.
And to see him on that roster,
just steal him. We swiped him.
Well,
you know,
okay,
watching...
not officially. Let's not jinx it.
I know. Watching that Wales game, you know, first game back from the huge international hiatus. I mean, that was some of the most, like, the fastest, you know, football we've played as a country for a long time. I mean, this is like, you know, Gold Cup winners quality. I mean, we're not to the point where we're competing for the World Cup yet, but I mean, this is already such an improvement, you know, from that failure of a Trinidad and Tobago team. And also, these kids are not experienced at all. I mean, Reyna is 18. You know, a lot of these kids are in their teens. You know, Musa is 18. So I really think with time, if we, you know, track all these players, and especially, you know, their clubs are going to be developing them a hell of a lot. So I think we the USA could really, benefit from pumping out all these little kids.
Hank, you make a good point there, and I do want to say that does actually transition us pretty well into our next topic. We have a lot of rumors to talk about with MLS players going over to Europe. So I'm just going to sum it up real quick. I have a list that I can go down here of the names. We're going to start off Brian Reynolds. That is his name, right? I'm not making that up.
Ryan
Brian.
Reynolds third, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I get
Yeah.
because Ryan Reynolds. So I was like, oh, but Brian Reynolds is currently linked with. Well, I I wrote this list last night, and then I woke up this morning to find out he's been linked with just like 6 other teams. But Roma's the big
Half of
one.
Europe.
Yeah, half of Europe pretty much. Roma,
Yeah.
Juventus, AC Milan, I believe Marseille, PSG, Bayern Munich were all in the running as well. So basically, yes, half of Europe. Um,
He can go play with the biggest MLS player of all time, Zlatan Ibrahimovic at Milan.
do not speak again. Um,
Dude, who decided it was a good idea to have this guy on the show? By the way, Zlatan cannot get it done in America, but the dude does it everywhere in Europe. And what does that say?
can't even beat the Houston
saying.
Dynamo to get into the MLS playoffs. Just saying.
The Swedish Connor Hallisey.
Next we've got Gianluca Busio from Sporting Kansas City. He's currently linked pretty much also with half of Europe right now. Barcelona, Bayern Munich, Fiorentina, Juventus, and there were a few unnamed Italian teams that were amongst those as well. Uh, Mark McKenzie, the big name he's being linked with right now is Celtic, as well as according to Philadelphia Union's boss Jim Curtin, he is also linked with a few unnamed Premier League and Bundesliga sides. Uh, we're going to talk a little bit about Brendan Aronson and his confirmed transfer to Salzburg. Daryl DK is currently being linked with Bruges as well. So, there's a lot of rumors right now going around, and I have just one question, and it kind of goes along with what we talked about earlier with Weston McKennie. What does this say about academies and the current talents of MLS? Jacob, I'll let you start for us.
Yeah, so I mean, I think this is just a huge deal if you're a kid growing up in America right now, because I mean, 2 to 3 years ago, we didn't really have that many people to look up for. I remember growing up as a defender, being able to just go, okay, John Brooks is pretty good. DeAndre Yedlin plays in the Premier League, and then after that, your eyes kind of fell solely on MLS. And I love MLS. MLS is fantastic, and there's many great players, and their product at MLS has just continued to grow. But there's something just as a young player that's a little bit elusive about Europe, and just something that you can kind of dream about when you're kicking the ball around with your friends or you're at a practice. And so seeing that through these academies that there's now players being linked there all the time, and it's not just this occasional rumor, just does so many wonders. I just think in the eyes of kids all across the U.S. And it's showing that things are actually starting to work for us. And a system, at least where I remember growing up, and it was like being part of like the ODP system, it was kind of like I don't really know like if any of these players are actually going to go on to do anything. I kind of remember thinking that as a kid. Those thoughts are starting to wane now. And now we're starting to see a much more organized system. We talked on past episodes that MLS's new system that they're putting out there in terms of player development and why we think that's such a great thing. One player I do really actually want to touch on, and I know we were saving this for a little bit later, but I'm going to jump into it right now. And I think this is also another really critical aspect is the rise of Chris Mueller. So this dude's currently 24, but let me tell you why that is important. So just 3 years ago in 2018, March of 2018, so we're around the same period of time, this dude was not even worth $200,000 according to Transfer Market. And now we are 3 years later, and this dude's evaluated at 3.3 million. And so I think the other thing is that I think as kids, we grow up and we think if we're not good at the age of 15 or 16, it's over for us. And Chris
Right.
Mueller and so many players right now are just showing why that is just not the case. So I think more than anything else, this is just such an inspiring thing to see.
I think also what you were saying, because Chris Mueller, he took the college route. He was a super draft pick by Orlando. So that, I guess that still shows that the super draft is still a viable way to get talent, and we've seen that if you draft correctly, you can reap the benefits still, even though academies are obviously taking precedent now. The college route is
Well,
still a
and
viable route for many young professionals.
I think the college route's just going to be so key because growth spurts happen for kids that are still 19 and 20. So these kids that are getting cut in these like European systems because they're not tall enough at the age of 18 in the US are now having these chances once they kind of develop into, quite frankly, more of being these men and these bigger figures.
Yeah.
And so we're going to see kids getting a whole lot more chances, especially throughout the NCAA and the NAIA. So, yeah, college is going to be key.
Do you think that we should like keep a hold of this college pipeline to MLS because A, it's something uniquely MLS. You don't have that anywhere else in the world. Also, as you said, it's still viable because people can grow and they're not forced to be cut at 16 anymore.
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely, it should still be a thing. And I mean, I'm not going to lie to you, I'm not up to all my super draft knowledge, but I mean, we see perennially every year that there's at least a few players that come out of it. So, in terms of like the draft format itself, I don't know that it makes the most sense, especially because of the academy system that we're seeing now. It's kind of like just kind of players in your area you're typically signed. But if this means that more players are still getting pumped into these teams, I'm all for it.
I think something that's kind of discredited, because we only think of in America, you think of only the MLS, but I mean, Dale DK came up through the OKC Energy youth program and eventually went to Virginia and took the college route. But I think that we also, we'll have to take into account these kids coming up through USL programs. I mean, because there are so many ways for people to come up now in America, which is great. I mean, it used to just be go to college, get in the super draft, go to the MLS, go to Europe, God willing. But I really do think that we need to focus a little bit on the USL. I think US soccer should probably acknowledge them a little bit more, try to get some more funding, and see if we can, you know, make more academy players than we're already producing.
I think I agree to a certain extent. I mean, right now we see so many MLS teams looking at USL as a place to give their younger players a shot. I mean, we saw that with Alphonso Davies with the Vancouver Whitecaps. He played his first games with the second team, and of course we have a lot of teams doing that right now in MLS. They affiliate with some of the USL teams, or they have their own, like Sporting in Portland and Atlanta. They all have their own teams. And I definitely agree that that is a place that I think youth players should be given more of a shot. Um, because in the Premier League, there's the academy system, uh, and it's way different from here in America and MLS. There's not really an academy right now. MLS is trying to develop their own. U.S. Soccer had their own, but of course that went under recently. And we're kind of in this stage where it's like, well, we could follow the Premier League formula and just go for the academy route, or we could stick with the USL route that's been working well over the past few years, but does it reap the same benefits that the Premier League Academy has reaped for the Premier League over the past couple of decades?
You know what I think we're going to see, Jules, is I think we're going to start seeing this trend where the United States is producing better athletes than necessarily players, especially around the age 18 or 19, and then we're going to start to see players excel around the age of 22. So where I'm going with this is, I know you guys know I love to talk about this guy because he's a Wolves player, but he's just a prime example of this. So Owen Otsoi didn't play soccer till the age of 14, and now we're seeing him because he's a fantastic athlete be able to play in the Premier League. You talked about it a little bit earlier with Giovanni Reina. Now I know he played in club systems as well, but I think the longer that we keep kids out of these systems, the more they're going to fall in love with the game more naturally than have this feeling of being forced to play it. And I think in terms of motivation, that's going to be key as well.
Yeah,
So I actually would really try to steer away from the Premier League system.
I think I agree on that. I was reading that article about Owen Otazawi, a couple days ago, and I was just looking in the Twitter comments under it, and just so many people seem to have the same idea. It's that we need to encourage more the pickup system that almost every single South American country relies on, of just kids playing pickup soccer, just going out on the streets, playing some futsal, maybe just going finding the nearest football pitch and just having a pickup game. I think that's something that really needs to be encouraged more, and less of this pay and get into the academy system. I think we need to encourage more of the pickup game, and just have players naturally fall in love with soccer, like uh, every single country in South America has done for generations.
I think that, and we can touch on this more in another episode, but I do think that in America there's kind of we have to change the culture around soccer, and it's definitely on its way to be better. But I think there's still this, you know, there's all the old people, all the nationalists who are like, oh, soccer's for the European, sissies. Like, who plays soccer? I really think that needs to change, kind of that idea that soccer is for the weak, soccer's for, just it's a girls' game. It's for the weak. I really do think that needs to change in order for, the game to really be embraced, and for, uh, development of players to really pick up more speed, uh, throughout our country.
I hear what you're saying, but I think we're there, man. Because if you look across the board right now, I mean, just like 20 minutes ago, or sorry, probably 2 hours ago at this point, Patrick Mahomes is talking about he wants his kids to play soccer,
I did see
and
that. That's pretty cool.
it's like you see those things, and that's not happening 5 to 10 years ago. And you
Mm-mm.
look at the growth rates of kids playing soccer, it's ginormous. And the access that we have between these apps like ESPN Plus, and as much as I hate this app, Peacock, games are cheap and affordable to watch now. And that's a huge deal. I think we're there, man. I do.
Yeah, the accessibility is a huge plus. We don't. I remember like my freshman year when a Champions League game would be on, I would have to go to soccer streams on Reddit and watch some
Yeah.
dodgy stream out of the back ass of Moldova and watching a language I've never heard before. Out of and I'm staring there on my iPad. It's like 6 pixels, and I can hardly tell what's going on. But now I'm able to turn on CBS Sports, and they've got this huge coverage. They've got Roberto Martinez, Michael Richards, Jamie Carragher, these huge names, and they're talking to Americans in an American way. And who's the host? I forget her name, but she's brilliant. I love her work. Um, Katie
Yes.
Abdo.
I can never remember either.
I
I'll
think
look
that's
it
her
up.
name.
I'll
I
look it
know
up
it's
right
Abdo.
now.
Now we've got this studio that takes us through all the goals, and it's all UCL, it's all Europa League. All the games are accessible for. I mean, it's for a price, but it's not for like a premium. And we get to watch Weston
Definitely,
McKennie score at the Camp Nou.
definitely better than what
Mm.
Bleacher Report was doing with that shit. Oh my god.
Yeah, or TNT. Like they
Oh my
never,
Oh,
they
god.
Yeah,
didn't have all the
TNT,
games.
that was awful.
They had one
They
game a
didn't have
week.
all the games, and they would never show the games that people wanted to watch. We had Bayern Liverpool one time, and they showed like Real Madrid versus like Porto or something like that.
Yeah. And by yes,
So
it
yeah,
is Kate Abdo. Yes, you were right.
Kate Abdo, yeah, she is brilliant. But that's
Yes.
besides the point. The whole like just to see the growth of soccer here in America, it's something that I'm glad I've got to witness firsthand.
Mhm.
Yes, I definitely agree with that. You see just like the just everything that's coming together right now with ESPN Plus and Peacock and like you said CBS Sports, and soccer is just becoming more and more accessible to anybody who wants to watch it, and to the kids who want to watch the best in the world play it, and that's how it should be. That is exactly how it should be. Because when growing up, it's like, we had like ESPN that would show, like, I don't know, maybe like some FA Cup games and like a few MLS games every
Yeah.
now and then. You had NBC Sports that show the Premier League, and then you'd have Fox Sports with the Bundesliga. Now it's like all in one app, ESPN Plus. You've got Serie A, you've got Bundesliga, you've got the FA Cup. Uh,
You had the Chinese league and the Eredivisie.
Yeah,
Mhm.
you got those leagues as well, and
The Australian League, it's crazy.
the Indian League, I believe, as well, which is something else. And MLS, you can watch every MLS game pretty much, unless you
Woo!
live in that city, which is an issue of itself
Which is
that it we could take an entire episode talking about. But
Mhm.
um, but the point is, it's like soccer is more accessible to watch in this country than it has ever been, and it's just really helped to expedite the interest in the game, not just at the youth level, but at the fan level as well. And I think that's just so extremely important for developing the game right now.
No, so I mean, I remember. Okay, this is kind of bombshell news right here, but admittedly, I have only been a Chelsea fan since 2011. Okay, guys, calm down. I
they've
didn't know
been
that
around
they were
since
good. I
2003.
I didn't know that they were that good.
When you were what,
But
7?
I mean, but it's just kind of I was exposed to Chelsea through, watching them on NBC Sports and playing with them on FIFA. I mean, I fell in love with Chelsea because of scoring Andre Schurrle, 30-yard bangers in FIFA 13. Because that's all I had because I had the Wii. But I mean, I just think there are kids today who, are growing up with things like ESPN Plus and being able to watch the FA Cup final and throw the remote across the room when Chelsea can't win the. I'm gonna scream now. Um, but I mean, it's a
Hey.
range of
Just say it,
emotion.
dude. Just say it. Pedro Neto, last minute winner, dude.
Don't talk about it. I mean, it's that emotion that all these kids have been exposed to now. It's gonna be infectious, and I love it. I love this game. Quoting Patrice Evra, I love this game.
And that's all out of the way. We have a little bit of time left. We are kind of going over right now, but um, let's all talk about the rumors that we picked out uh, at the beginning of the podcast. Hank, I believe that you wanted to talk about Daryl DK.
I did. So I'm gonna butcher Brugge, Club Brugge. One of the arguably. Shut up! Everybody, shut up! I
A
I've
brug life.
never
Rug
been
sound
able.
effect 3.
Latif
I'm
Blessing.
gonna.
Oh my God, Latif Blessing just scored.
What a legend.
It's 3-1.
It's
Yeah,
3-1.
they won the game.
Daryl DK in Belgium club number one. Um, Brugge have been interested. Shut up, guys. The last summer we need to remember that they actually went after Mandzukic and Dost, but failed to land them. So they are definitely needing a striker. They've said they wanted to go. All they'll do is 5.5. 8 mil has been swirling around, but I mean, a lot of teams would go very high for Daryl Dyke. I mean, he was prolific in this kind of home stretch of this season. He accounted for 32% of Orlando's goals this season. He had 8 goals, 3 assists in 17 games. I mean, and for him to come up through, like I said, the OKC Energy and eventually, the college system with Virginia and then rocket, through the MLS, I really do think that it's exciting to watch, strikers and goal scorers like this come up through the American system and through the MLS and, hopefully join other Americans in Europe and, hopefully new academy players can follow that, uh, blueprint as time goes along.
All right, so Jacob, you already talked about your player earlier, Chris Mueller, and what he means for the current MLS development. So I'll just go ahead. Joss, I believe you were going to talk about Cole Bassett, and I was going to talk about Gianluca Busio, and those two are kind of connected in a sense. If you want to take it away.
Yeah, right. So Cole Bassett, the midfielder for Colorado Rapids, who's actually younger than I am, so I just needed time to consider my life choices up to this point. Okay, I'm good. Cole Bassett, he was in the 22 under 22, which is no small feat for any player. But he sort of flown under the radar. But he had a quietly good season. He was involved in 10 goals in MLS play, which is very exciting for a 19-year-old, especially a midfielder, having 5 goals and 5 assists. So that shows his split between goal scoring but also providing. He quietly was very good, and I think this is a growth that's been coming. In the offseason, he trained both with Freiburg and also Arsenal. Now that Arsenal, that would have been huge before the season started, but now they're just relegation battle fodder. So who really cares? But he trained with Freiburg, so that's cool. Good for him. Big club only. Big clubs only for our MLS fam. And I just again he was a player that's come through the Rapids Academy, playing at the U16 all the way to the U19s, and now he's really shown through and done really well for them for their first team. And I'm excited to see what he does so far. He's been linked to Wolfsburg, so he can go there and link up with John Brooks and is it Linus? Ulysses Linus, right?
Linus is on loan at
He's on loan at Herenveen, right?
yeah, Herenveen.
He's still owned by Wolfsburg.
Yes, he is.
So he can go up there and link with a couple of Americans, and we'll see how he does. I'm excited for him though.
Yeah, and I said at the beginning, Busio and Bassett are kind of linked in a sense. Um, of course, like I said, Busio is currently being linked with just a number of teams in Europe, and just the number has risen over the past few weeks, even alone. I mean, Barcelona, they've been rumored for a couple months now, and I mean, Serginho Dest is working his magic right now, because I mean, never in my lifetime would I imagine a Sporting player would be linked with Barcelona. Uh, you see just a lot of even MLS fans saying that just like every time they watch players like Gianluca Busio or Cole Bassett that are currently being linked with teams over in Europe, they get underwhelmed. And it's like, I don't understand that. I think Busio is such an important player for Sporting right now. Just what he does off the ball and his work ethic on the field, I think, is just so important to this team. Um, but that's a topic for another video. And Cole Bassett too. He does not get enough recognition at Colorado. This kid is amazing. He's been doing just so much great work for Colorado over the past season, and I'm just surprised that nobody's really recognizing what he's doing for them. But it also brings up another point: is it not also impressive that these players that don't really have like the stats to back it up, is it not impressive that they're also getting linked with Europe, that Europe is watching these kids who maybe aren't even as impressive but are still getting linked with Europe? If anything, I think that shows just how impressive the youth development in this country has gotten, to the point where even players like Busio and Bassett, who yes, they don't score all the goals, they don't get all the assists, but they do the work off the ball, and they just have such good work ethic. Is it not impressive that they're also the ones getting linked in Europe?
No, definitely, because they aren't the big names, right? They aren't the Chris Mueller, like Jacob mentioned, who I would say is probably in the top tier. They're not a Brendan Aronson, they're not a Mark McKenzie, but they've still got this link. So there's obviously something going on here, and elite European clubs are noticing, they're starting to notice these players, and this can only be a good thing for us. It can only be a good thing for the league, and it can only be a good thing for the national team, for the amount of Americans that decide to go abroad. So yeah, I think knowing that these aren't the big names, but they're still picking up these huge links. That's like Brian Reynolds has played like 3 months of MLS, and he's been linked with half of Europe. So these clubs are taking notice. And any club that isn't taking notice should start taking notice of MLS players, because we are going to produce some of I would argue the best players in the next few years.
Just on Buzio, I would really prefer him, to just go straight to Fiorentina. I would love
Agree.
for him to avoid kind of a Zach Steffen situation where, the American goes to the big name club, everybody loses their minds, and he gets sent out to another, a smaller club, that's not Man City. I mean, granted, Zach Steffen did make a start for City last week, I believe, but
Yes, sir.
I think I think Buzio getting that time right off the bat in Europe would, help him build confidence more, play better in the overall picture.
I definitely agree on that point, but you also have to like consider, and this isn't me hitting on you, because I think that either point could be argued, but you also have to
Oh yeah.
consider the youth aspect of it. Like Bayern Munich's academy is immense, and for Busio to
Hmm.
even playing with the second team would be just insane to see.
Incredible. Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely I see where you're coming with that though. And with that, I think that is a pretty good place to end our first podcast back in quite some time. We know it's been a pretty big hiatus, but we're back, and we're going to try to keep pumping out content and keep the podcast going this time around. So yeah, I'm Jules.
I'm Jacob.
I'm Joss.
And I'm Hank. And shout out to Bryn because I told her I'd shout her out. So.
And we will see you guys. That is not it.
Dog, you did not just say that.
I do it for my city. I do it for my community.
This has been Designated Podcast, and we will see you guys in the next episode. Peace out.